Hi, friends. I'm Sarah DeStasio, the Reproductive Justice Liaison for Olympia Indivisible. I've been a member for a couple of years. I'm also a democratic socialist and a former labor organizer. Thank you to OI for being so welcoming and for being an organization that gives so many opportunities for everyone to participate in concrete action. And you're going to be hearing about many opportunities for action and advocacy as we move forward tonight. Right now, abortion is available in 28 states with total bans in 14. It's going to be a very long road to make sure that in every state in the union, abortion is treated as the human right that the United Nations says it is, that it's free, on demand, and without apology. The fight ahead of us is not just for abortion access, for reproductive justice, but it's a fight against misogyny, against transphobia, against racism and misogynoir, among other things. Any war with many fronts requires many tactics. The day of the Supreme Court decision, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said, "We have to fill the streets. Right now, elections are not enough, but they are essential. And if you want, you can substitute fill the streets with fill the voicemail boxes of voters, like folk did in Kansas when they beat the anti-abortion ballot. You can also substitute fill the donation baskets of organizations like the Northwest Abortion Access Fund, which I've been asked to talk about a little bit tonight. So the Abortion Access Funds is a national network of multiple orgs and funds that can help people fund their abortions, help connect people with transportation, connect people with aftercare, etc. Northwest Abortion Access, NWAA, serves Washington, Oregon, Idaho. I might be missing one. Someone put it in the chat. And they need your money more than Planned Parenthood does, which is something Planned Parenthood themselves have said, encouraging folks both to donate to their local abortion access fund and for those in states where abortion is safe for now, think about giving a few dollars to another abortion fund in another state. Cindy Wilson from the Northwest Abortion Access Fund is going to be joining us in one of those breakout rooms at the end of the speaker sessions. So if you have questions about that network and how you can help providers and the recipients of abortion, go ahead and hop into that breakout room later. And for now, here is Olympia City Council member Lisa Parshley, to be followed by Representative Jessica Bateman to share their perspectives on the path forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm Lisa Parshley, as introduced. I prefer Lisa in a crowd like this. I know there's two Lisas, so you could just say the not so smart Lisa, because I've spoken to Lisa Ornstein and she's brilliant. I'm glad to be here. Before I go any further, I just have to do this because of the wonderful introduction that Lisa Ornstein gave us about land acknowledgement, that I need to let you know that on the 10th of October, this Monday, at Squaxin Park from 11:30 to 2:30, we're going to be celebrating Indigenous Day. This is a joint celebration with the city of Olympia and the Squaxin tribe, primarily being planned by the Squaxin tribe. It's also the first celebration in their new park, which at one point had one of their original villages. So this could be a very lively, excellent celebration of shifting from an outdated, inappropriate holiday of Columbus Day to the appropriate Indigenous Day. So come celebrate not only the park, but Indigenous Day. And be careful of parking. I'm sorry, I had to do a little advertisement because of that land acknowledgement, Lisa. And before I get into the topic, because I still get angry, I still remember the day in May when I heard the rumor. Do you all remember that? The rumor that something I fought hard for in the 1980s, that I stood on sidewalks with umbrellas over women going into Planned Parenthood in Portland, Oregon to keep bottles from hitting them, and cans and rocks. I thought we were beyond that. I thought my nieces had a future where they could make their own choices. That all of the actions that followed on the right to privacy, gay marriage, LGBTQ rights, all of the rights to marry someone who was not of your color, of your race, are at risk. I remember that anger. And I remember we went up to the Capitol steps and I stood there and I wasn't sure I'd know what to say because the anger was so intense. And I can't remember who was speaking, but it made me realize I did this in the 80s. I'm going to have to do it again. And I'm going to have to turn that anger into action because I'm not going to let this stop us. I'm not going to let my nieces and their children have to go through this fight again. That day, I contacted the city manager of Olympia and I told him, word of warning, I'm coming with something and I'm going to come with something to the city. And while we're little 53,000 person jurisdiction, we're not going to sit still and let this happen. And we're going to be prepared for the day that the Supreme Court actually does what's rumored. So that was the birth of a referral that got presented to the city council on June 21st. I got Councilmember Ian Huen and Councilmember Dante Payne enthusiastically backing me up because you have to have co-signers like a bill to the legislature on this reproductive rights referral. And on August 9th, we passed the resolution. I just want to read a few things that we are committed to as a city. The first and foremost, and I was assured that night this would go into effect with our police department. The Olympia City expanded our sanctuary city status to include all reproductive health rights and choices, whether they were from Olympia or otherwise. We would not interact with any other state or jurisdictions, police departments or justice departments. We were going to expand something that Representative Bateman started with the sanctuary city when she was still on council. We were going to express very loudly and unequivocally that the city of Olympia is pro-choice and we respect all reproductive rights of all people and condemned any attempt to restrict, prohibit, or otherwise impede access to safe and legal abortion and reproductive health in our community. We shall refuse all requests that are an extension of any federal policy or policy of another state requiring us to enforce action against any of those seeking these rights in our city. Olympia would then go on and direct staff to look at what is available to other Washington cities and what other cities across the United States are doing. And we would commit out of council resource funds a substantial amount of money once this research is done to either Planned Parenthood or any other reputable, I put reputable because there's some non-reputable abortion counseling groups out there that are actually trying to prevent people from exercising their choice, to allow lower income and marginalized community members from Olympia to have access to reproductive health and abortion and pro-choice counseling. We would then look into and push the First Amendment rights and balance it against the right to access of medical care and reproductive health in a manner, as our city attorney is looking at, that it would include any access to a building that has a reproductive health, not just the one entrance. So you would have to be either 25 or 50 feet away from any entrance to that building. And that might move them across the street in our current Planned Parenthood, and it would keep them away from the end of that building because they're sitting right next to an exit. I don't want to prevent their First Amendment rights, but I also don't want to make it so people don't feel like they can enter that building or any building. We would provide resources for reproductive health rights education, including directory of service providers, ensuring local crisis pregnancy clinics display factual signs and share accurate information about their services, going at the several clinics, or at least one that we know of, that's a false pro-choice counseling clinic. And then we would then follow up going, what else can we do? And we have asked for them to add most of this that we don't get done before the end of this year onto our new Community Livability and Public Safety Committee, with an idea that some of the rest of this would get done in 2023 outside 2024. I'm very proud of our city for doing this. I would say the work has just begun. We're going to have to keep steady pressure from the outside on our council to remind us, in the midst of all the other things we're working on, that this is equally important. If I was to say, what is next? What can we do? I have approached the other jurisdictions with this referral and this resolution and asked, would you join us? I've gotten some interest in 2 of the jurisdictions and one of them no. So if I was to say what was next, go to the other jurisdictions, do public comment, ask them to make a similar move that Olympia's done. Let's make all of Thurston County similar. Let's make all of Thurston County extending sanctuary rights to those who are visiting us from other places, to those who are practicing that right in our county. Olympia needs the constant pressure to keep moving forward on that resolution, but let's see if we can get other jurisdictions to tip all the way over, because the 2 are almost there, but we need the public to reach out to them. And then I would say, if you can't follow Olympia's lead, please put on your legislative agenda to encourage your legislature to continue the work on this, that they're interested in supporting our representatives, not only in our district, which we have the lovely Jessica Bateman here, but LD 35, LD 2, any of the ones around us, and any of those that you can reach out in other districts throughout the state, because we need the legislature. We're not going to be able to do it alone. I know all politics is local, but we're going to need their help and partnership to make this state start focusing on states that are going backwards. And I think I would just say, I have to give a lot of credit to Lisa Ornstein. She reached out to me and we've talked and grieved together, and she's helped me keep moving forward in a motivated manner so I can channel my anger. And I look forward to any conversations in a breakout room or any questions after Jessica has spoken.
My turn? Want me to go now? I don't know if I'm waiting for Sarah. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Councilmember Parshley, for that update on the incredible work of the City of Olympia. It's so amazing to see the next incarnation of the sanctuary city being used for reproductive justice, and I really appreciate your work on that. You know, I go back to the day that the Roe v. Wade decision, overturning of Roe v. Wade, was announced, and I was actually with Councilmember Parshley when I got that news. And not long after that, well, actually no, we had I think we had a press conference on the footsteps of the Capitol when we heard about the leak, that was something that was on the horizon. And a group of Democratic lawmakers stood up, including myself, and during that, it was covered by the press. I stated that I'm one of the 1 in 4 women that have had an abortion. And that is not something that I tell people, have told people. I grew up in a generation in an era where there was a stigma associated with that, but I wasn't going to step aside and stay silent while this right is being stripped from so many of my fellow Americans. I did not disclose the reasoning why I had an abortion or the circumstances, because none of us should have to do that. If someone wants to share that, that's fine, but that's not something that we should have to tell. And abortion is healthcare. It's economic justice and it's racial justice. It's about bodily autonomy, and it's about ensuring that people that can have children and women continue to exercise their own bodily autonomy and their future. So in Washington State, we are very fortunate. We allow abortion, and we have actually since 1970, when we were the first state that actually made abortion legal by a ballot measure and having the people of the state of Washington vote. However, every year, Republican lawmakers attempt to restrict access to abortion or overturn abortion. So we are not safe from the threat of our state continuing to have that option. We also had in 1991 a ballot measure that voters again reinstated their belief that women and people that can become pregnant have access to abortion up to viability, which is the state law as it stands now. It's also worth noting that in Washington State, we are one of only a handful of states that use our Medicaid dollars to actually pay for abortion, which is really important. We also require insurers that provide coverage for maternity services to also cover abortion services, making that equitable. So since Roe v. Wade has been overturned, a group of Democratic lawmakers has gotten together to figure out a path forward at the legislative level. And we're focusing on a couple different areas. First, ensuring that we have an adequate workforce to support the increased demand for abortion in Washington as a result of other states making it illegal. Legal protections for providers, data privacy, and making sure that Washingtonians have access to abortion. Going to workforce, one of the, and these are bills that are being created, drafted right now. I don't have the actual, all of the bills in full right now. Some of them are just concepts, but we're moving forward with the drafting. So you'll be seeing these hopefully in mid-December when we can actually pre-file bills. But we want to make sure that our telemedicine laws that we changed recently to ensure that providers can get coverage through insurance for telemedicine, that we can also ensure that medication abortion can be provided via that route. We also want to make sure that we have enough healthcare providers that are willing and able to provide medication abortion. So providing an education for providers on that, even something like a reproductive health services core for new providers that want to specialize in that area. Maybe some of them are really inspired to do this work because of this recent law change at the national level. One bill that I'm looking at is ensuring that cost sharing, that we don't have cost sharing for abortion services. So there's no out-of-pocket costs for individuals that are accessing an abortion. In terms of legal protections, we want to take a look at medical malpractice insurance and see how we can ensure that providers are accessing medical malpractice insurance and that there are provisions that to as much of a degree as possible, they can be protected. We're also looking at professional licensing and how we can navigate if healthcare providers were going to be held accountable through their licensing, through the Department of Health or the licensing authority, and making sure that that's not something that's going to happen from another state. We're also looking at legal shield laws that will protect abortion providers in Washington from civil and criminal liabilities stemming from any abortion care that they provide. As we've seen in the state of Texas, they have a law that's basically allowing for bounty hunters to sue individuals that enable abortion, not the person themselves that accesses the abortion, but it could be the Uber driver, or it could be, the admin assistant that's booking the appointment. So we want to protect providers and others in Washington. Providers is what we're focusing on now, but that example I just gave actually makes me think, are there others that we want to protect from legally? And then data protection, that's something that has come up. I'm not sure if you've seen in the news, but there's a concern that if you are going to an abortion clinic, that your geodata could be used against you, that it could be collected from companies outside of the state and could actually be used against you and So we're looking at ways that we can apply HIPAA privacy protection to that data as it's relevant to a healthcare procedure. So that is a list of the package of bills that we're looking at for 2023. I can say that it's a significant Democratic priority, both in the House and the Senate. We're working together with our colleagues on the Senate side and making sure that some of these bills will have in the Senate and in the House. I think it's really important for us to remember that we, especially in the Senate, have a thin majority. And one thing that we can all do is make sure that we're organizing and we are working to elect Democrats in the Senate, especially. The biggest example is Senator Emily Randall, who is running against a Republican who's a sitting House member who's running against her in the Senate. And he's actually been one of the significant sponsors of anti-choice legislation and rallies behind that issue. And she is staunchly pro-choice and has a history with Planned Parenthood. So if you're able, shoot Senator Emily Randall a donation and help her get elected. She did have good numbers in the primary, but we want to make sure. And then donate to the Abortion Access Fund. You know, in Washington State, I have data from the Guttmacher Institute. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but they're trying to get an estimate of what our increased demand for abortion services could be in Washington as a result. And that would especially happen on our borders, especially Idaho. And they're predicting up to a 385% increase in patients coming from out of state. I need to dig into how they're coming up with that number, but you know, we are going to have a significant uptick. And what that means is that we want to make sure that Washingtonians obviously can continue having access to reproductive freedom, and that we have an increased workforce that can provide these services. And we're going to rely heavily on these nonprofit organizations that are working behind the scenes to get access. If we can get access to patients in their home states, especially through medication abortion, that's fantastic. Obviously, we want to provide travel if they have to have an abortion through an actual procedure and come to Washington State. And then support the reproductive health care package. I'll have more information as we get closer to the legislative session. We pre-file our bills in December. They can be dropped all the way until midway through session, but we start, and I anticipate with how passionate legislators are on this issue that we're going to see quite a few of these drop in mid-December. So you'll be able to get a preview of that. And we'll be very great about communicating outwardly about all of these bills, because we're going to want to make sure that people show up and say that these are priorities, so we can have a lot of support